Well, good evening. For those who don't know me, and maybe you've seen me around Holy Apostles throughout the years, my name is Dcn Bill Bieker, just newly ordained this morning. I want to first thank Father John and his support for allowing me to speak to you tonight. And Father Len and all the deacons, and all of you who have supported us throughout the years at Holy Apostles, thank you. I want to especially give thanks to my bride, Marlene, for her unwavering support and love. For my local family and my Colorado family that came a long way just to support me in my ordination. Thank you. I wanted to talk to you this evening about these readings today. It seems that every time Jesus has something important to communicate, he creates a story and tells a parable. In this way, through reflection on an invisible reality, he leads those who listen to him to discover the invisible call to God, who is present in life. A parable is meant for us to think, maybe in a deeper way, and reflect on God's word. I think for this reason, maybe it's a little bit important that we really pay especially attention to the smallest details. In this gospel reading today, there are three persons that we're talking about, isn't there? The poor Lazarus, the rich man without a name, and Father Abraham. The rich man represents the dominating ideology of that time. Lazarus represents the silent cry of the poor in the time of Jesus and in all times. Now we see the rich man had some fine clothing and was extremely rich. On the other hand, the poor man, Lazarus, lacked the simplest garments to cover those sores that even the dog licked. Now back then, dogs highlighted Lazarus's dismal state, since dogs were kind of considered back then filthy and undesirable animals. In the first reading, we see that Amos condemns the complacency of the rich who seek their own comfort. While in the second reading from St. Paul illustrates just how we should not become complacent with the gifts that God has given us, that we must always have faith and strive to always seek God in all we do for the greater good of all people that we come in contact with in our lives. This parable represents two extremes, don't they? While the poor man was carried off by the angels into Abraham's embrace, what happens to the rich man at the end of his life? It seems his door was closed when Lazarus approached him. There seems much pride and greed in the rich man, and perhaps blocked the possibility of love and showing any compassion towards Lazarus. You know, while this parable seems to be about money, it's really about values. It is possible to be wealthy and enjoy God's favor, just as Abraham, David, and Solomon serve as examples. The question is not whether we have money, but whether we love money. Whether we share God's concern for the poor and the vulnerable. Whether we are too preoccupied with personal concerns to notice the Lazarus in our midst. Luke writes this gospel many years after Jesus' resurrection. He has seen the Jewish leaders respond to this resurrection of another Lazarus by plotting to kill Jesus. He has seen that even though Jesus rose from the dead, people still refuse to believe. Those who refuse to heed the call of Moses and the prophets to care for the needy and the vulnerable are the same ones who killed Jesus, who continue to oppose the church in spite of the resurrection. We are left to wonder how people could fail the test of compassion so completely, how they could fail to respond to the resurrection, how they could be so blinded by love of money. Then it occurs to us that we are not the Lazarus, but the rich man. We too pass by the needy without seeing. We too fail to obey Moses and the prophets. We too fail to put our confidence in the resurrection. We too are lovers of money. This parable is not a bedtime story, but a warning. Christ is somehow waiting for us there in poor Lazarus. We need to ask ourselves if we are willing to see Lazarus in our midst. We need to ask ourselves what we have done lately to provide food, clothing, shelter, and human kindness to the Lazarus in our midst.